Hello, welcome. My name is Amelia Stockschlaeder, and I will be discussing my capstone of the interior redesign of Faith Community Church. I will quickly discuss the contents of my presentation. I will first discuss who the church is and what I will be working on. Then I will be talking about the design guidelines that I set for myself to follow. Then I will talk about the ideation and my exploration of the space. Next, I will discuss the final design that I went with, and then I will quickly discuss how I went about my physical model building, and then finally, in my conclusion, about what I learned. First, a little bit about the project. Faith Community Church has a mission to grow followers of Christ who love God and their neighbor, proclaim the kingdom, and restore lives. The church is actually considering changing their name to the Ark and changing a lot of their branding and their mission statement and the church as a whole. My project will really propel them into this process, as this will change a lot of their interior design. A little bit about the church history. The church was finally incorporated in 1984. This was when the congregation was meeting in homes, public buildings, libraries, other spaces like that. In 1998, the building was finally constructed where it is today. Then in 2006, they built phase 2, which consists of more classrooms, other youth spaces, and stuff like that. Finally, today I am working on their design development that will hopefully be implemented by 2027, and they are looking to implement this in the next year. I created different phases for the spaces that they wanted renovated or designed. I am strictly working on phase 1 that consists of the lobby, sanctuary, and cafe. In these spaces, I will be creating a welcoming space in the lobby to draw people into the building. And the cafe, I will be transforming an old conference room into the space that you will see later. Then in the sanctuary, I will just be updating and making that space more modern. This is what the current lobby looks like. Again, this building was built in the 90s and it just looks very dated and it needs an update. This is where the cafe will be located. This is an old conference room that some walls will come down, and you'll see that dramatically change throughout the process. Then is the sanctuary. Again, looking like those 90s designs, just old, dated. I'm going to update that a little bit more. I will now discuss my design requirements and the guidelines that I set. I want to allow this space to be a space that people want to come to at all days of the week. I want this to be an exciting space for the community and allow this space to encourage personal connection. I want to give the building a good first impression and allow the younger generation to be drawn in by this design. I want to allow the building to work for the people and a place that is configurable for different uses of those spaces. And I also want to make the community aware of the building's purpose and have the building work for the people rather than people just working inside of a building. This is the site of where Faith Church is up at the top left. I go to school at the ICC down at the bottom right. And you can see the site more clearly in this view. The brown box is the current building and the orange is their full site. To the right of the building, they have a lot of sports fields and playgrounds and other things like that. This is their current floor plan. As you can see, the orange section is the area that I will be working on specifically. This old conference room is where I will be putting the new cafe. And here you can see the walls that I'm taking down and the door that I will be removing. Now we will move on to the ideation phase of my project. I began sketching out on paper because I really wanted to feel how the space felt in my hand and just revisit sketching and develop these skills further. I then created a mood board to help guide my design process. I wanted their space to be very warm, welcoming, friendly, exciting, and promote that diverse community. With all those things in mind, I developed some of my preliminary ideation ideas with these mood board and design drivers in mind. It's very warm, friendly, gives a home feel vibe, and I then developed and presented this to the church. After ideation, I did meet with the church and they decided that I needed to make the building a little bit more modern and less like a home. They did want to allow for the younger generation to be intrigued about this building. So I cleaned up the colors a little bit, used a little bit more blacks and dark woods, but still kept the same consistent feel and the colors. Now I will discuss and walk you through my final design. After the meeting with the church, I created a second mood board. Again, you're seeing a little bit more of a modern feel, cleaner lines, more bright whites and blacks, but still keeping the warmth and welcoming and exciting parts of this building. I then created a materials board. This is a physical materials board that the church was given. I wanted to pick materials that worked well together, but also made the space look modern and clean, keeping with those three colors and polished concrete, dark wood, a dark carpet, and keeping it just very neutral. I then developed section views to help with my process of organizing where I am and what I'm looking at in the building, and this helps really orient myself as the designer. And here is the final exterior aerial view. You can see that there are stained glass panels in those existing windows. I brought up the stone all the way to the top and darkened the roof color just a little bit. Here is a closer view of that front. This is a view of possibly a churchgoer just getting out of their car. And walking up, you can see those stained glass pieces. I really wanted to incorporate stained glass into this design because when you think of a church, all you can think of is stained glass. However, I did want to modernize the glass a little bit. I didn't want it to be too gothic or cathedral. I really wanted to keep it sleek and modern. Now moving into the lobby, this is what their space could look like. Having places for people to sit down and lounge in the front, and then a welcome desk right when you walk in with a TV for anything that they would project for that day. The church is also incorporating a daily childcare, and this desk would be utilized for that. I also included their new mission statement on the back wall, as well as some pictures and tapestries for representational art that they could put up on the wall. This is a view from the back of the lobby. Again, you can just see those stained glass and the comfortable seating options that you have in this space. I want to create spaces that people would sit and loiter a little bit and really create that fellowship that the congregation wants. This is looking up into the narthex, and having those tapestry pieces, a cool chandelier can really create some cool light refractions in this space, creating an existing and visually appealing space. Now moving into the cafe, this is what the space could look like. I added a mural on that back wall. I wanted to create something that was representational of the diverse community. Adding in that bench seat on the back allows for this space to be utilized. And this is a pretty small space, so that really opens it up to having some different types of seating options, like the sitting table at the front and the bar top between the two pillars. This space really allows for people to sit down and enjoy each other's company. I did also allow for a TV on your right for anyone that does not feel entirely comfortable going into the sanctuary during service. So instead, they could just sit out here, be a little bit more comfortable, and watch the service being streamed. I also added a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf that will be utilized as the church library. This will allow for churchgoers to come and check out books as they please, and it solves the problem for their lack of library currently. This is what the sanctuary could look like. I darkened all the wood, stained it a darker color. I added dark wood beams on the ceiling, as well as painting the ceiling a darker color and giving them a darker carpet. This allows for the eye to be drawn to the back and to the front screen and directing all your attention to what is happening on stage. I also added 2 crosses symmetrical of each other on each side of the walls. The church had to remove their cross when they incorporated a screen. That cross was located where my screen is currently placed, and that is where their screen is today. Now, instead of not having a cross up on the front, I really wanted to incorporate that element, so I added 2 to have that symmetry and added it on both of those walls. Now, if you turn around, this is the back corner of the sanctuary. I wanted this to be a really colorful, playful space, but also be a space that can be more comfortable than the sanctuary seating. This being a comfortable area, it can be utilized as further seating for the sanctuary and services, or it can be utilized as a private meeting area, a small group meeting area, anything that makes the users more comfortable, but also it's a fun space to just sit and talk. Now I want to revisit my design guidelines and show you how I accomplished each one. I allowed the space to encourage personal connection by creating different seating options and spaces for people to sit and fellowship together. I also created a space that promotes diversity by adding in different types of murals and utilizing those spaces to show off the community of Dublin. I also created a configurable space for different uses by allowing the furniture to be fully movable and be able to configure the space however the church desires. I also created a space that people want to go to at all days of the week. By adding in that cafe, this allows for the younger generation to be more intrigued and inviting, but also allows for parents to stay and have a cup of coffee while their child is in the daycare. I also allowed the community to know the building's purpose because adding in that stained glass front windows allows for the community to know what this building is and what their purpose in the community is. I then want to go over a few before and afters. This is the front exterior, and there's not much change to this, but it does just clean it up and modernize the building. Then this is the before and after of the lobby. I think this space changed a lot, adding in those seating areas, taking down the wood panels, opening up those back walls to the cafe, really invites people in and draws you to the cafe space where you can then sit down and relax. And in that cafe space, this is the before and after. This has changed the most drastically as this was a conference room before and now utilized as a welcoming cafe. Here is the sanctuary before and after, and I think this space is cleaner, more crisp, draws your eyes to the front more, and with those crosses really tells you what this building is for. I will now discuss the design process for the physical model that I built. This was a very fun process for me as I love working with my hands. First, I printed out the floor plan that I built, and then I really just built up from there, cutting out those wall pieces, then adding in some windows, interior walls, and then finally the roof. Finally, I added some furnishings, materials, textures, and this is what the final model looks like. All of the block colored pieces are movable as I did want this to be utilized by the church and for them to really customize the space to what they want. Finally, in conclusion, I want to talk about a few things that I learned throughout this process. There were a lot of benefits to this project as this impacts the church and has impacts on me. The church will be able to grow and reach the community with this propulsion into their further design of their church. This space will be created into a place that the community desires to go to. And this really impacts the whole church, including the people inside of it and what they plan to do with the building in the future. This also has a positive impact on me as it gave me the experience in the architectural field that I desired, and it allowed me to deliver to a real client and real people. It gave me experience using Revit and Enscape and the softwares that are used in this field, and I put into practice my design skills in a real life project. It also allowed me the skills to work within a schedule and make deliverables that were being produced on time. Overall, this capstone just really gave me the skills to work with real people and interacting with a real building, and thus producing a great final product. Thank you for sitting through my final capstone presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.